just pointing out as well, before we get to that President Moon Jae-in's helicopter is about to land, so we'll cover any comments he has to make before he gets on the plane. So here comes President Moon Jae-in and First Lady Kim Jong-suk. Big smile on his face, probably inside contemplating what's going to happen over the next few days, but he certainly looks confident walking out onto the plane. You can see him with his Chief of Staff there and other chief aides and his National Security Advisor Jung-Yeong along for the ride as well. It's a nice day for a trip to Pyongyang, and we're looking forward to seeing the hopefully a productive and constructive summit between the leaders of the two Koreas, because this really is a crossroads in the process of hopefully reducing tensions once and for all, and even hopefully denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. Meeting before they head off to the summit. If you're just flicking through the channels, you are watching the summit. It's day one. President Moon Jae-in there is about to board the plane at Seoul Airport for the trip to North Korea. And he's joined by some political party leaders as well, Jung-Yi, but those right of center have decided they didn't want to accept the president's invitation.
Political parties were actually, well, South Korean presidential office offered invitation to the political parties in South Korea, but they were split in terms of accepting that invitation. And now we're seeing three heads of three political parties joining trip with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. And those are the ruling Democratic Party and the Liberal Progressive Justice Party, and the Democratic Peace Party, of course.
And the main opposition, Liberty Korea Party and the Bareunmirae Party, turned down the invitation that was sent by President Moon. So we are about to see the South Korean leader get on the plane for this big trip. He's saying his goodbyes to everyone boarding the plane on what is going to be a momentous, a remarkable occasion for the two Koreas. And we thank you very much for tuning in to Arirang to watch this slice of history unfold. And on the First Ladies there, we see Kim Jong-suk, President Moon Jae-in's wife of many years. She'll be meeting with Ri Sol-ju, who is Kim Jong-un's wife. There's a 35-year age difference between the two ladies, but they do share the same passion for music. A lot is hanging on this summit, as we've been talking about. Jung-Yi, before we see President Moon get off the jet, let's just give an update on what's the schedule for President Moon and his delegation today, if you wouldn't mind, while we have a couple of minutes here.
Right, so at around 10 a.m., so that's about now, President Moon will be arriving at Sunan. He will be landing at, he is landing at Sunan International Airport in Pyongyang. And after an official welcoming ceremony, there's going to be a luncheon, but we have no idea who's going to participate, who's going to take part in that luncheon. And in the afternoon, the first meeting between the first round of the summit meeting, actually, between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in will take place. And while that meeting takes place, South Korea's special delegates will be meeting with Kim Yong-nam, who's the head of North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly. It's the parliamentary body in North Korea. And the business leaders will be meeting with the Vice Premier of North Korea, Ri Ryong-nam, who's in charge of the North's economy. It's known that he's a person who acts like a control tower to come up with economic policy. So definitely we will be able to see some discussions on economic cooperation take place between the business leaders and the vice premier. After that, in the late afternoon, we expect South Korean president to watch an arts performance by North Korean art troops, but we don't know what sort of performance it's going to be. And in the evening, we also have a welcoming dinner, but about this too, we don't have any idea which of North Korean officials will be participating at this welcoming dinner. So we're seeing the live coverage, we're seeing the live footage from Pyeongyang's Sunan International Airport. This is the first time an inter-Korean summit, actually the major scenes of, some significant scenes of inter-Korean summit being live broadcast. So yeah, I think the President is going to appear.
Well, we can see the North Korean crowd is starting to warm up a touch, still relatively subdued, but I'm sure they'll liven up once the officials start coming past. Quickly before President Moon gets off the plane, Professor Song, just walk us through one more time, if you wouldn't mind, what the two leaders of the two Koreas are planning to talk about during this summit, the main agenda items.
Again, the spokesperson Yoon Young-chan kind of laid out in 3 bullet points. One is the exchanges that they could have in various areas between the North and South, and a more important item of denuclearization. What kind of commitment that North Korea can make that is palatable to the White House and which can continue the process of...
It's interesting to see there's no South Korean flag there, but there's the North Korean flag and the unification flag. We can see Kim Young-nam is there on the far left of your screen.
We're also seeing Choi Ryong-hae and we're also seeing Lee Sun-won, who's the head of North Korea's Committee for Reunification of the Fatherland. I mean, he's been the representative who led North Korean delegation to the high-level talks between the two Koreas several times. He's the direct counterpart for South Korea's unification minister.
Yeah, whenever we see the two Koreas hold their working level talks, it's usually between Ri Son-gwon and South Korea's unification minister. Anything we can read into the officials we see there, Professor Song? Clearly they are among the highest, most senior level officials in the regime.
Clearly very high level, and it shows their willingness to lay down literally the red carpet, but also a very high level welcome. I think that, as Chung-hee mentioned, that there must be a reason why they keep showing the gate and the door.
Yeah,
somebody will emerge in a quite dramatic fashion.
Yeah, someone wearing a traditional Mao suit might emerge from that building, but we can only speculate on what's going to happen at the moment. But we're not going to have to wait that long. The plane is there, sat on the tarmac. I'm sure waiting there, people are eager to get off and get their first taste, for many of them at least, their first taste of a warm Pyongyang welcome. So the crowd there.
They're here.
Okay, there we see the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un coming out.
Yeah, so North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, we can confirm, is at the airport to personally greet President Moon Jae-in on the tarmac of this airport in...
And he's coming out along with his wife, Lee Sol-ju, the first lady of North Korea.
It's amazing how quickly the crowd went from rather subdued to being in such high spirits, but that's to be expected.
They were very calm.
Yes. But this, I'm sure, will go into propaganda roles in the regime's state-run television broadcasts. It's another way Kim Jong-un can legitimize his control over the regime, inviting the leader of South Korea to his country. He's walking along, strolling along, looking very confident and comfortable. As Jung-Yi touched upon the first time, he looked slightly unnerved, unsure of himself. The first time he walked across the DMZ for their first summit back in April. But this is his city, this is his home country, so I'm sure he feels much more comfortable here. We're seeing people shake the flowers. It's kind of reminiscent of the scenes we saw when Nam Yu-han and Kim Dae-jung had their respective summits with then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Professor Song, looking at this, what's your first impressions?
Well, it's only fitting that he appears and be the first one to greet the President Moon Jae-in. It speaks to the importance of this meeting, and it speaks to his emphasis on optics of showing the two leaders standing together with a warm embrace, so to speak, and touching, starting this historic visit.
So just like his father in 2000, it seems Kim Jong-un decided to welcome the South Korean president who's coming to Pyongyang via the airport. Now they're hugging,
warm embrace. They do look genuinely pleased to see each other again. Last time they saw each other was back in May, so going on 4 months. Ri Sol-ju and the South Korean First Lady as well engaged in a warm conversation, smiles all round, very cordial, and everyone seems to be on good terms ahead of what is likely to be a big summit. But at least at this current time, it's smiles all round. We don't know what Kim Jong-un is thinking about, but it's nice to see that the two Koreas are at this point together where we can see these warm scenes between the leaders of the two Koreas.
And North Korean children delivering flower to the first couple.
This is the first time we've ever seen anything like this in 11 years, a South Korean leader coming to Pyongyang for an inter-Korean summit. The weather seems to have accommodated them as well. It seems like a lovely early autumn day there in Pyongyang. Lots of music going on, big smiles from Kim Jong-un's sister. They must have got to know each other fairly well during the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics when she was over for several days to watch that.
And she actually invited President Moon over to Pyongyang. She was sent there as a special envoy and delivered Kim Jong-un's invitation to President Moon Jae-in to visit Pyongyang, and now that happened.
Okay, so Jung-Yi, we're seeing him, President Moon Jae-in, meet with the top brass in the regime and military leaders. We can go down the line there. That really is the who's who of the North Korean leadership. The trusted inner circle of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Right, so it seems he's been greeted, it seems he's been greeted by the top military officials, possibly the chief of the general staff of the North Korean army and the defense minister. And now the North Korean leader is greeting the South Korean officials, the foreign minister, defense minister, the land and transport minister, and the maritime affairs minister. Yeah,
we must remember that these officials have met each other before, the vast majority of them anyway, since the last meeting was only 4 and a bit months ago.
Right, so shaking hands with the National Intelligence Agency chief as well, and the cultural minister, and some of the top officials from the presidential office, such as the spokesperson and people in charge of the protocol.
Well, it seems as though everyone is being very gracious and good-natured, and let's listen in to see if we hear anything.
So it seems the two leaders are going to inspect the honor guards at the airport. They've been ready for the past, I don't know, nearly an hour.
Of the honor guard. They're a little bit different to how it was in Pyeongyang back in April, but a very warm welcome. The red carpet has been rolled out for the South Korean leader, and it seems as though this meeting is off to a good start. Professor Song, do you think that President Moon Jae-in is absolutely aware of, down to the finest details, every detail about this trip? Can you see any way in which it hasn't been agreed that North Korea must not divert from the official schedule?
Remember that the details about the schedule has not been hammered out until the last minute, so I'm sure there are a lot of
but he won't want to be put into any embarrassing situations.
No, I don't think so. I think he will handle it well. If anything, they have developed this personal chemistry.
Yes.
So I think that if it comes to that, they'll wing it pretty well.
Right. Well, we saw in the Pyeongyang summit when they took that walk along the bridge and sat down on the bench, Jung-I, and they had that long conversation for about 40 minutes. There is some talk that potentially something like that may happen again in Pyongyang. There is an area in Pyongyang, if I'm correct in saying, where the two leaders might look to get away from prying eyes and ears to have a one-on-one chat. They have plenty to talk about.
Right, so a potential place for that is the PENINSULA State Guest House. It's where the previous presidents who visited Pyongyang also stayed and had their summits with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. President Moon is expected to be staying there as well. And according to what we've been learning, that there is a spot within that guest house where, you know, there's a forest and the Taedonggang River also flows alongside the guest house, and there's a large lake. And there's also, you know, some, pathways where people could actually walk along. So, you know, this could be a spot that's pretty similar to the spot in the Panmunjom at the demilitarized zone that we saw on April 27th, where the two leaders could actually stop by and chat with each other for, I don't know, more than 30 minutes or nearly 40 minutes.
Professor Song, you look like you wanted to jump in there.
Well, I'm just looking at the picture of this top brass of these two countries at the same time. Not just the top leaders, but those people who will be hammering out the details. And certainly I'm seeing all the major participants are there. We didn't see it right now, but of course we saw the businessmen also. So not only the official delegate, but also the private sector as well. So potentially, they have all the major players in one place.
Well, as journalists, we do try and depict the chemistry between the leaders from the videos we see on screen, but it does genuinely seem as though both men feel comfortable in each other's company. Two men so different in many ways, but there are still plenty of smiles and a bit of laughter as well. Just a reminder, if you are joining us, you're watching the ongoing coverage we have here on South Korea's international broadcaster Arirang TV of the 2018 Inter-Korean Pyeongyang summit between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un. This is the third time they're meeting in 2018, and they are getting a magnificent response now. The crowd has really woken up, and they're going delirious, seeing and meeting with President Moon Jae-in and of course their dear leader Kim Jong-un. Quite remarkable scenes, wouldn't you agree?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, true to his form, he's the people's president, and he didn't forget to shake hands with them.
Well,
the
we must remember that President Moon Jae-in is the son of North Korean refugees, so he has an affinity for the country and wants to do his best to bring peace to the region after several years of conservative, hardline administrations here in South Korea, where the relations between the two Koreas fell apart quite badly.
Right.
So, stunning turnaround.
Right. No matter what happens in his presidency, this is quite possibly the moment where his greatest legacy could be born.
Yeah, we're watching perhaps the keystone, the most symbolic moment of his presidency here. This is footage we're watching now that will live on for many, many years to come. It's quite extraordinary. Before his arrival, I was expecting a degree of cheering, but I actually am quite surprised by the level of joyous scenes we're witnessing here. Everyone's beaming, crying, laughing, having a wonderful time, shaking their flowers in the air. Jung-gi, and we're about to see President Moon Jae-in get into a motor vehicle, part of a motorcade, where he'll be whisked away into the center of Pyongyang. This is an airport, of course. It won't be that close to the city center.
Are they in the same vehicle? We missed the scene. Are they in the same vehicle?
If someone can confirm whether they're in the same vehicle, you would imagine that they would be in the same vehicle. But
right. We're still not sure if they got into the same vehicle, but...
Well, I'm sure someone will confirm that to us shortly. It appears they're in a closed roofed car. We can't say whether that's convertible or anything, whether they're going to be lifting down the top as they cruise through the streets of Pyongyang whenever they start arriving there. And looks like President Moon Jae-in, one final wave to the crowd there as they say goodbye.
So the vehicle is now moving, it's leaving the Pyeongyang Sunan International Airport, and it's heading towards the Baekgwawan State Guest House, which will be where the South Korean president will be staying. And after that, it's expected the South Korean officials will have a luncheon.
So this is the part of the process. So we have to see that even if we didn't get any concrete message from Kim Jong-un this time, but this we have to remember that this is a part of process. So as long as our president is trying to persuade Kim Jong-un into the right direction, so Kim Jong-un can meet President Trump again, and if something good happens there, I think this summit is still very meaningful.
Right, but then I feel like that President Trump, he actually has a lot on stake right now with the midterm elections in the U.S. coming up and all. So he needs something to show his country that he is doing something as a peace mediator, I guess, that he's the one who will be able to end the nuclear war on the Korean Peninsula. But, you know, I guess things didn't really work out the way that he envisioned after that Singapore summit with Kim Jong-un. But I mean, I feel like after today's summit, depending on this week's summit between President Moon and Kim Jong-un, I feel like there are chances that President Trump might not meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, depending on what comes out of this week.
Even though it's very difficult for us to expect that there is a concrete message from Kim Jong-un about its nuclear weapons, but I'm almost sure that Kim Jong-un is not going to say any negative things about the negotiation with the United States on its nuclear weapons. So when Secretary Pompeo canceled his most recent visit at the end of August, that there was a concern that North Korea might pull back from the dialogue with the United States. But with our special envoy's visit to Pyongyang, we confirmed that North Korea is still interested in having talks with the United States. That means that it's in North Korea's interest to continue to have dialogue with the United States. That means that North Korean leader is not going to say anything negative for the negotiation with the United States. So I think that even if we don't get any concrete positive message, but at the same time, we are not going to get the negative message from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Right, I kind of agree with that because in a sense, we know that Moon's special envoy to North Korea, JONG-UN, when he was in Pyongyang this month, right? He said that Mr. Kim reaffirmed his commitment to denuclearize. So, in a sense, we're a little bit confused. I mean, where is this going, right? I mean, he's saying he's willing to denuclearize. He even mentioned a timeline we heard from our special envoy that Mr. Kim plans to, go ahead with this denuclearization process before Trump's first term ends, right? So this was the first time that North Korea has actually put forth a timeline as well, which kind of raised hopes that perhaps things will get back on track. But obviously, Mr. Moon, our president, has a lot on his shoulders, and a lot of eyes are on what's going to come out. Although you said that, Dr. Oh, you said that you don't expect anything concrete to come out this time, meaning that perhaps you're expecting something vague to come out than just specific detailed measures, I guess?
Since our special envoy briefed the media and the public that Chairman Kim Jong-un mentioned that he's willing to denuclearize by the end of President Trump's first term, which is the end of 2020.
Right.
So maybe this time there's a possibility that Kim Jong-un publicly confirmed that message.
The cars are approaching. We're going to see the leaders of the two Koreas get out of their separate cars and enter the building. We'll see if they have anything to say or whether it will just be a handshake and then down to business over a spot of lunch and the summit talks. But let's let the pictures speak for themselves for a while, and if our Unification Ministry correspondent Oh Jung-Hee or our professor who's joining us today, Song Se-ryun, wants to chip in and offer any insights, you're more than welcome. Oh, it looks as though
they're together.
They are together. We don't know whether they changed cars on the way there.
So since there's a limit that what our president can use as a leverage to North Korea, because North Korea is already under harsh sanctions, that South Korean government is not literally provide almost nothing toward North Korea. So there is almost nothing that we can use as a leverage toward North Korea. So only leverage that we can use is that what we can do if North Korea is denuclearized. So I think that with that, President Moon Jae-in will be trying to persuade North Korean leader Kim Jong-un that since we all know that Kim Jong-un is very much interested in improving its economic conditions. So President Moon is going to say, Chairman Kim, that without lifting sanctions, that there is no way the South Korean government can provide meaningful substances to North Korea. So I think that even though we don't have any like tangible leverages at this moment, but that's how he's going to persuade Chairman Kim.
Spotlight was on the First Lady diplomacy because North Korea wanted to show itself as a normal state. So we've seen his wife Lee Seol-ju accompany him on his state visit to China, and we also saw her greet the South Korean first couple at the airport today. So here at the hospital, the two First Ladies looked around CT and X-ray scan rooms, and they also watched a physical education class for children at the hospital. Now, the hospital is a new facility constructed in October 2013 on Kim Jong-un's instruction. Some 180 doctors are reportedly working here, and it's a 6-story hospital building. So we can see Kim Jong-suk greeting the doctors and possibly nurses at the OKRYU Children's Hospital. So we heard that it's the biggest hospital in Pyongyang.
Right. It's clear that Kim Jong-un wants to place emphasis on his efforts to revitalize the North Korean economy. Early on, when the president was heading towards their quarters, they took a longer route to show some of the most prosperous sites of their cities with a 70-story building and all the glitz and glamour of those high-rise structures, which did not seem fully occupied, though, at this point.
That's right. So what many experts have said is that North Korea probably wants to show off these because it's like the first time that it's being so broadcast on international media. They haven't done this in the past, so they actually wanted to show that some areas are maybe not prosperous, but that they're on their way.
Yes, they're working towards it. So this meeting, this visit to the Children's Hospital, OKRYU Children's Hospital, happened at around 2:30 p.m. So that was slightly before the summit began. Yes. 15 minutes before the summit began.
So the summit was supposed to take place at 3:30, but it was a little bit delayed to 3:45. So this schedule took place before the summit between the two leaders.
Right. Things seem to be moving smoothly, except that we did hear there were some hiccups in terms of scheduling, mistakes, and one North Korean official was stood up.
Yes, that's right. Parliamentary leaders, more clearly the chairs of the ruling Democratic Party and two liberal parties, were actually supposed to meet with the vice chairman of the North's, it would be their counterpart actually, and they were supposed to meet their North Korean counterparts, but there was a mix-up in their schedule, so they failed to turn up, and the North Korean official was left there waiting. So we will have to see what the problem was there and whether they can arrange a new meeting, because they were supposed to hand over a letter on behalf of the South Korean National Assembly chair to hold inter-Korean parliamentary talks. So we will have to see if that schedule is rescheduled.
Something that they can look back and talk about fondly as an interesting episode between the two Koreas. For now, the tour, we have more footage coming from the tour of the hospital. I believe in the past, the former First Lady Lee Hee-hyo visited a maternity ward, and North Korea wanted to boast its ability to continue to improve its population back then. And now this time, it's a children's hospital. Is there any specific reasons why this place is chosen as the first stop for the First Lady?
Well, North Korea has been focusing more on economic growth and developing its economy, so we can see that they're paying more attention to its children, its young people. And the presidential office said earlier this morning that the northern side actually proposed visiting the hospital and later a music college, a prestigious college. So these are very well-organized schedules that the North Korea had in mind, ready for the South Korean First Lady.
Right, the soft diplomacy. I guess some critics might see it as a bit of a smoke and mirrors to divert the attention from the main event between the two leaders. But looking at it from a more positive light, it means there's more proactive involvement in those around the leaders.
I agree, because all the program, all of the the schedule have been meticulously made by the North Korean authorities, because this is not just a diversion of the focus on the two leaders meeting. I think this is a tremendous plus because this is what we can achieve in our frequent exchange with North Korea, because we have a serious problem with birth rate, and younger people just remain single and not wanting to get married.
Issue that South Korea can
This is a
relate
very heavy issue for South Korea, but also the college issues as well, because we have experienced very falling rate of students registered at major universities, and both in the capital city and also in the countryside. So this is a very quite contrast to South Korean case. North Korea is still enjoying a very relative high birth rate, even though because we have a totally different idea. This North Korea is a very impoverished country, and the birth rate must be low. But because of the Kim Jong-un's leadership, and because of the specific assistance to these programs, and also the education is very important. So this is intentionally scheduled and by the North Korean the authorities. And I think looking for the kind of very positive kind of repercussions and responses from the outside, or particularly from the south.
There seemed less restriction in monitoring compared to the previous visits by the predecessor of the current president, the First Lady. It seems visible in North Korea with a live broadcast from Pyongyang itself. It's almost unheard of.
Because Kim Jong-un is very confident in his own ability to control the society, and I think he made a lot of contributions to make the city much more modern, much look better. Painting the facade of all the main buildings and building a very strong, kind of very famous streets, almost one by year. And so he's ready to show that we are this much developed, and we have a tremendous kind of potential for further development later on if we can continue this kind of dialogue with South Korea and the United States. So this is a very meticulous scheduled and meticulously articulated plan by the North Korean leadership to show off to the outside world.
Right. It would have been more fascinating if the South Korean sports and cultural stars were accompanying the First Lady to the children's hospitals. It might have provided a source of entertainment or the wow factor in some sense.
Yes, they could have given a K-pop show, but that wasn't the case. Some South Korean artist, Ali and Jiko, will actually be giving a joint performance with the Samjeon Orchestra tonight, where the art performance that South Korean President Moon Jae-in will be watching, or probably has watched, because it was scheduled for 5:30 today. It's the same one that was actually performed in Gangneung and Seoul back in February when the Pyeongyang Winter Olympics was held, and there's speculation that Kim Jong-un might also have been there as well. So we didn't know it was going to be this long of a performance, but it seems that they did actually prepare a lot. And
right. Possibly prepare some extra encore performances in case. Well, I'm sure they knew that the First Lady would be impressed. They prepared thoroughly with the specific audience in mind.
So just to give you a recap of where we are, this is the Kim-Won-gun University of Music, a prestigious university for music and dance in Pyongyang. Something I've noticed is that South Korea's First Lady Kim Jong-suk also engages a lot with North Korean officials there. She's not just like subdued, she actually asks.
There is no glass wall.
That's right. So we don't know exactly what she's asking, but we've seen footage showing that her engaging a lot.
Right, which is a very welcome attribute. It's hard to be in that position, to be that laid back and be approachable. And she, as we can see in the footage, she's constantly exchanging conversations and making eye contact and leaning an attentive ear to learn more about what she is observing at that point. I think at this point in inter-Korean relations, showing a sense of genuine interest, concern, care, and connection is important. And certainly the First Lady seems to be playing a good example, setting a good example as a role model for others to follow in terms of inter-Korean interactions. Because it's hard for us to have this sense of familiarity with our walls toned down, especially when we're conversing with North Korean counterparts who come from a more rigid upbringing.
That's right. So experts were saying that the visit this time around would be an opportunity for the two sides to get rid of that perspective, because last time the First Ladies only got to meet on one occasion, which was at the banquet, but now they're spending a lot more time together. So like Kim Jong-un said to Moon Jae-in, like they're going to get much more closer after the 3-day summit.
Right. As we can see from these profile shots of select individuals, those who are seated with their mouths open and in awe are the South Korean celebrities who are being more or less very impressed by the performances, traditional performances in North Korea. And it was interesting to note that most of these celebrities or K-pop idols were dressed more neatly and more conservatively in this setting instead of their lavish, glittery outfits.
That's right. From what I remember, Jiku also had bleached hair, but today it seemed very dark. So
he blended in with the locals.
So it seemed they're more reserved today for this special occasion.
Right.
Yeah, but the North Korean side, decided, and because this must be an ideal place for the First Lady, because she is a professional musician and she knows a lot of things about the performance of this type of. That's why she is really loved to talk to the gentleman sitting next to her rather. And so again, this is a good sign of decision by North Korea to show this kind of small, but it's a very professional performances by the North Korean musicians and dancers, which have tremendous, consonance with the First Ladies from the South, because she is really happy with seeing all these kind of performance. Just performed before her, and with all accompanied by the Korean musician dancers behind. So I think this is again a very good gesture by North Korean tradition, even in the culture area. There are a lot of things to discuss and exchange in the years to come. And again, this is a very important, very meaningful start for the First Lady to watch over these kind of performances.
This is the headquarters of the North Korean Workers' Party.
So
this is where the summit was held.
Yes, for the first time, and it's where North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's office is. We've also seen this place a couple of times through the Korean Central News television. Yes.
Right. It's quite vacant at this moment because this was probably for a PR shot there, but yes, it'll be a lot more lively, and I believe more reporters will be surrounding it once the two leaders are done with their summit and they step out of that venue. Mm-hmm. We are looking forward to hearing more about what has progressed between the two leaders during their talks. As we were discussing, Dr. James Kim, denuclearization would be a rather tedious topic to just jump head on. Many are expecting that to be the core topic, but it's not going to be easy.
I don't think it's going to be easy, and largely because the topic itself is difficult, and secondly, as I've said before, that it needs to be handled in coordination with the United States, and that player is not at the table. So of the three topics, which is the most likely topic that the two leaders are going to spend the most time on? Probably on the issue of peace and confidence building measures, because that's the only issue where the two leaders do not have any constraints, and where the two leaders can make some measurable progress in terms of actual action and outcomes. Economic cooperation, obviously without the sanctions being lifted, that issue cannot be tackled head on. So again, the two issues that the Moon administration has made the sort of the central underpinning of their inter-Korean relations, economic cooperation and denuclearization, probably largely going to be an issue that both leaders will say, we have a common understanding on these issues and we'll move forward on them, provided that these other issues get handled in coordination with the United States. While we're waiting, we have this matter on reducing military hostilities and tensions, and we can do that by upping the confidence-building measures on the peninsula. We've already seen some moves on that on these issues, right? So, for instance, on opening of the liaison office in Kaesong. So we're going to see more of that, and we'll see them in ways that we haven't talked about it before. So we're looking forward to probably tomorrow when the statement comes out, there's going to be some really, really measurable outcomes on that front. But on these other fronts, I'm somewhat skeptical, but hoping for the best.
Right. We are hoping that they can focus and get some tangible results on achievable goals step by step at this point. Going back to the role of South Korean President Moon Jae-in playing the mediator. It's a tough job, of course, and just as President Moon and his team may be ready to try and help North Korea and the U.S. Meet halfway, it's possible that North Korea has already prepared ways to respond to such suggestions.
Right. North Korea may have some suggestions about what they could do to push ahead on the issue of denuclearization so that the U.S. can make its own compromise on their front. But I think North Korea is looking for President Moon to largely advocate on their side for their position, that the U.S. needs to really make some concessions here that will allow them to move forward on denuclearization. So the end of war declaration would be one way to do that. The other, obviously, is to try to get some partial sanctions relief, if it's at all possible, if not complete sanctions relief. Again, whether any of this is possible, we'll have to see, because President Moon, right after this summit, is going to the UN General Assembly meeting in New York, where some of these issues, including international sanctions, can be discussed. So I think that the timing is really good for President Moon and also Kim Jong-un to set this up for sanctions relief of some kind.
Right, and we're looking at the footage right now coming in. It's at the Workers' Party headquarters, and it looks like President Moon Jae-in is signing a guest log. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un left a message that implied that they want to meet again soon, and possibly something similar is being written by President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un posing for photos and constantly exchanging pleasantries, and who knows, these kind of small talks might lead to something more substantial in the long run. And also present at the venue was, I believe that was Kim Yo-jung, right, Ji-won, the North Korea's Deputy Director of Propaganda and Agitation Department of Workers' Party of Korea, and also the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
I've met President Moon Jae-in 3 times now, and this time we met in spring, and this time we are meeting again in autumn here in Pyeongyang. And our encounter today is very fitting with today's season, autumn. And I am very delighted to welcome President Moon to Pyongyang. And we are all welcoming him. And we have high hopes that we can achieve great achievements. And I think it is also the same with our citizens. We met 3 times now, just this year. And this time, I felt that we've become really closer. And we have become closer. And there was also a very big accomplishment that has been made. It was all possible thanks to the ceaseless efforts put forth by President Moon Jae-in. The inter-Korean relations, as well as North Korea-US relations, have also improved greatly. And the historic North-US summit was all able thanks to President Moon Jae-in. It was a very historic moment, and it's not an exaggeration to say that the historic encounter between the North and the US was possible thanks to the efforts of President Moon. And we hope that we will have great progress made between the North and the US. And the citizens of Pyongyang also have high hopes. And I once again highly praise the efforts put forth by President Moon Jae-in.
First of all, Chairman Kim Jong-un and First Lady Lee Seol-ju, thank you for the fervent hospitality shown by the Pyongyang citizens. It was so much more than we have expected, and I am deeply grateful for this. This was more than what we have expected. The spring of Panmunjom led to the autumn of Pyongyang. We have met 3 times over the past 5 months. And looking back on our journey, we had the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games, and before this event, we had Chairman Kim's New Year's address. And in that address, we saw the bold decision of Chairman Kim. The inter-Korean relations and the North Korea and U.S. relations, we are seeing the new era opening before our eyes. And the progress we made so far was possible due to Chairman Kim's determination. And on my way here, I looked around Pyongyang City Center to notice the surprising development Pyongyang has made. Greeneries were easily spotted everywhere in the mountains. And I pay my respect to Chairman Kim's leadership to enhance the lives of the people despite the difficult conditions. And today, together with Chairman Kim, the fact that we are opening a new era of the Korean Peninsula, I have my expectations high and I am very excited. Meanwhile, I feel keenly the heavy weight on our shoulders and the sense of duty. And with this heavy sense of duty, I am here sitting at the table for our summit meeting. And I hope that the summit will bear fruitful results for the 80 million people of the 2 Koreas, especially marking the national Chuseok holidays. I hope this will be a present for the people of Korea. And the world is watching our meeting, and I hope to show the fruits of peace and prosperity to the people around the world. Thank you very much.